Our grandson is coming home, so let's have steak again today. Rhino, hurry up and order the catering.
At my in-laws' house, we order steak through catering once a month as a treat.
All right, shall we eat?
What about mine? How many times has this happened now? Every time they don't prepare a steak for me. My mother-in-law just lets me place the order, and once I've fulfilled that role, there is no steak for me. My mother-in-law is very assertive, and I just can't stand up to her. I guess I'll just have to put up with it again. Just when I was about to give up,
Grandma's really mean, isn't she?
What? My name is Raina. I'm a 38-year-old housewife. Having no particular talents, I used a matchmaking service and met my current husband, Craig. I wanted to get married but was struggling to find a good match, so the matchmaking service was my last hope. I was almost resigned to giving up, but then I met a man who shared my love of movies. That man is now my husband. We hit it off on a movie date, had a smooth courtship, and got married. My husband, being 2 years older, was kind, but that kindness disappeared when our son was born. Our marriage had grown cold when two changes occurred. The first was our son's IQ, which suddenly soared as he grew. By third grade, he could handle subjects at an 8th grade level. Moreover, our son, who loved reading, was able to speak 5 languages by 5th grade. However, his intelligence led to bullying and he stopped attending school. Thanks to an opportunity to study abroad suggested by his teacher, he's now studying at Cambridge University in England. The second change was moving into my in-laws' house when our son went abroad. My husband's work location changed, so we moved into his parents' house, which was closer. Having become a housewife after marriage, I had no choice but to follow my husband. Little did I know this would be the beginning of a difficult life. My mother-in-law was the only one living at the in-laws' house when we moved in. My father-in-law is in the hospital due to illness.
I am not feeling very well, so I need you, young one, to work hard for me.
That's what I was told on my first day living in my husband's family home. But my mother-in-law doesn't seem sick at all. She even seems more energetic than me. How old are you, mother-in-law?
64 this year.
My husband answers my question with a hint of annoyance. Really? But she doesn't look sick at all.
In this house, whatever mom says is the law. Don't you dare question her or you'll be in trouble.
Upon hearing those words from my husband, I suddenly felt incredibly alone. I could clearly sense my mother-in-law's hostility towards me, but I never thought my husband would abandon me like this, even though our marriage had gone cold.
Come on, Rhino, get to work. You'll be staying here, so first clean the floors with this mop.
With that, I was handed an old mop and bucket. Looking around, I noticed dust accumulated everywhere. It was clear the cleaning hadn't been thorough. Can I start using the vacuum cleaner? I thought to tackle the dust first.
Don't rely on modern tools. Just do it all with the mop.
Despite having a vacuum cleaner in the house, my mother-in-law refused to let me use it. I gave in and obediently replied, "Understood." Could you do that part while I do this one? I thought we would clean together, so I asked my husband, but my mother-in-law interrupted with a contemptuous look.
What are you talking about? Craig and I will chat and rest here. You clean by yourself.
But the house is unnecessarily big with 6 beds, 3 baths. It was impossible for me to clean it all alone.
Also, do the dishes that have piled up, please.
I was already at my limit with the floor cleaning, and now she was adding more demands? I can't handle it all. The house is too big.
Oh, really? Then I'll allow you to use the vacuum for $10 every 10 minutes. How's that?
That's too expensive.
You can't even pay $10. What a poor daughter-in-law.
My husband didn't lift a finger to help me, even as I was being mercilessly belittled in front of him.
Moreover, he said, "It looks bad to squat and talk while mopping."
When it was just the two of us living together, the lack of conversation was manageable, but since coming to his parents' house, my husband's cold behavior had turned into something like psychological abuse.
Let's have steak today. I know a delicious place.
With that, my mother-in-law called for catering. My arms ached, but I somehow finished the cleaning and dishes. And right when I finished, the catered steak arrived. I worked hard for this. I was beyond excited for the steak. Ever since I heard that we would be ordering steak, I put extra effort into cleaning. My mother-in-law said it was going to be an expensive steak, and I couldn't help but wonder just how delicious it would be. My stomach seemed to growl just thinking about it.
Reina, please pour some water.
My mother-in-law's tone was commanding and cold, but I could endure it all for this moment. I absolutely love steak, especially filet mignon. Once I finished pouring the water, the ordered steaks were lined up on the table. Wow, it looks delicious. Thank you, mother-in-law. I thanked her with joy.
Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way there's any for you.
My mother-in-law responded with a puzzled face.
What?
What do you mean, there is none? I felt my heart sink to rock bottom. I cleaned the floors as you asked, and I have done the dishes. I said weakly, only for my mother-in-law to retort,
That's only natural. It was merely a token of appreciation for letting you stay. Think of it as paying a fee through your actions. Did you think you could live here for free?
I had moved into my in-laws' house due to my husband's work, and it was already nothing short of hell. Yet I didn't have the money to live on my own. Since getting married, I only received $200 a month for allowance. After buying clothes, cosmetics, and necessities, I cannot save. My savings before meeting my husband were spent on moving expenses and my father's surgery. I thought I would at least be secure as a housewife. I realized how naive I had been. So what about my dinner? My mother-in-law seemed completely unprepared for that question and began pondering.
Let me think.
I felt hurt and questioned my worth.
There are some noodles around. You can eat those.
The table held high-quality steaks, and my meal was noodles? This stark difference told the story of my place in this family. They both ate their steaks in silence, never offering me a bite.
Reina, wash this knife and fork thoroughly.
The only time I came close to the steak was when I washed the knife and fork after they were done eating. From the very first day, I endured horrible mistreatment, and I was mentally and physically exhausted. One day, during this never-ending cycle, a call came from our son who was studying abroad.
Mom, long time no see. Hey, you were good at handcrafts, right?
What's this all of a sudden? I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I do embroidery as a hobby.
Really? Handcrafts are trendy here in America now, and I was reminded of your work. There are specialty stores here, but even looking back now, the quality of your embroidery is on another level.
My son praised me during this rare phone call. How long has it been since someone praised me? I couldn't help but feel happy and even shed a few tears. Thank you. Only Leo would say something like that to me. My emotions must have transmitted to my son because he said,
Mom, is something wrong? Your voice is trembling.
What? My son is learning psychology in school, it seems. He said he has perfectly memorized all human unconscious actions that tie to mental states. Already a high IQ son, he's been further honed by receiving quality education. Now, they say his IQ is even measured at 200. Even as his mother, I can't believe he's the same person. Thanks to that, he has completely seen through my heart.
Did something happen with Dad?
I remained silent for a moment, then gathered my courage to tell my son about the situation at my in-laws' house. I felt shameful as a parent, but I was grateful to have someone nearby to talk to. So, it's tough every day. When I finished my story, he said,
I'll come home once. It's summer vacation and I have saved up some money from my part-time job.
I insisted that everything was fine, but he wouldn't listen, and my son is coming home soon. Time flew during our long overdue phone call, and an hour had passed. Feeling rejuvenated, I thanked my son and hung up. When the call ended, my mother-in-law approached me with a glare.
That's quite a luxurious long phone call.
The energy I gained from my son slowly depleted as I dealt with my mother-in-law. I'm sorry.
More importantly, we're having a block party at our house tomorrow. Take care of the shopping.
With that, my mother-in-law handed me a long list of items and left. At the end of the note it said,
"Make a reservation for steak catering."
Then came the day of the block party. People started to gather afternoon, and before I knew it, there were 10. Everyone calls my mother-in-law the president.
"Come on, Rhino. What are you doing? Serve juice to everyone," she ordered.
Mother-in-law who used me no matter who was around. "Lauren, don't overwork the girl. It's pitiful. You should treat your daughter-in-law more kindly." Some did stand up for me against my mother-in-law's harassment, but my mother-in-law wasn't pleased and threatened.
"If you keep talking like that, you're no longer members of the block party. No more high-end steak after this. Is that what you want?"
Upon her threat, they said, That's too much. We love this community." I'm sorry,
Rhina is my name?
Yes, Rhina. Oh, we can't go against the president, they said. And the support they offered was quickly withdrawn by my mother-in-law. It seems she doesn't just control this house, but the whole area. There is no way I, a mere housewife, can win against this woman. The steak I had ordered arrived, and my mother-in-law began happily arranging it on the table. Since she had chosen the steak, it was surprisingly luxurious. The side dishes were a parade of high-end ingredients like caviar and truffles. But even here, my mother-in-law lectured me.
"You think you can eat such good steak as a wife? You're 100 years too early. You won't have any this time either."
My mother-in-law bullied me openly in front of everyone. The pitiful glances from those around us pierced me. No one could oppose my mother-in-law. I glanced at my husband, who was quietly eating his steak alone. But surely a little bit is fine, isn't it? I was envious of not being able to eat the steak and slightly resisted my mother-in-law.
"Of course it's not okay, but I'm not a demon. I bought beef noodles for you this time, so I'll give them to you,"
she said, handing me a serving of noodles. Upgraded from ordinary noodles to beef noodles? But what I wanted to eat was steak. I finally lost my patience and raised my voice. "Mother-in-law, this is too much. I prepared everything for today's block party, and yet you treat me like this?" "So is this true? You prepared all this by yourself, Rana?" "Lauren, couldn't you be a little kinder?" With my words, everyone's eyes turned to my mother-in-law.
"You all better not get carried away, or you'll be treated the same as this useless son's wife."
My mother-in-law countered with determination. Everyone lost to my mother-in-law's intimidation, and no one said anything back.
"Rhina, you remember what I told you before. You must obey mother in this house."
"But..."
"Then?"
My husband suddenly raised his voice. I was surprised by that voice, and my body flinched.
"Obey mother's instructions quietly."
The atmosphere became silent at my husband's words, and the people who had been supporting me eventually said, Yes, Lauren is right." Filling the room with voices defending my mother-in-law, frustrated, I ran away from the scene and locked myself in my bedroom. I wonder how many hours had passed. It seems I had fallen asleep. When I realized, the block party had dispersed, and it was night. When I looked at my mobile phone, there was an email from my son.
"Mom, I'm heading your way tomorrow."
Apparently, my son was already in America staying in a hotel. I went back to sleep. The next morning, as I went to the living room, my mother-in-law was making breakfast.
"You really got carried away yesterday, didn't you?"
"I'm sorry." I informed my mother-in-law, who attacked me without even a greeting, about my son.
"Oh, Leo, if he's coming back, we'll have steak today."
It seems my mother-in-law, who hadn't seen my son since he went abroad for study, was eagerly looking forward to seeing him again. She had already ordered catering from our usual steakhouse, and then the evening came and my son returned home. The dinner table was laden with steaks, even more luxurious than usual.
"Leo, eat as much as you like."
My mother-in-law was quite pleased. As always, I was treated like a servant.
Thank you, but where's Mom's portion?"
My kind-hearted son noticed that there was no steak for me and was worried. At that question, my mother-in-law attacked.
"Oh, it's fine. Rhina is always like this. More importantly, try this. It's made with beef from Nebraska."
My mother-in-law looked happy to be reunited with her grandson after such a long time. But my son responded with unexpected words.
I don't want it. Why didn't you prepare mom's portion? This is discrimination, isn't it?
He said coolly. My mother-in-law was startled by this unexpected reaction. My husband also looked at our son surprised.
What are you talking about?
Grandma, I have heard everything from mom. You really look down on her, don't you?
My son, who had returned home, had grown up strong and confident more than I knew. Feeling antagonized by him, my mother-in-law began to panic.
Oh, what? What did you hear? I didn't do anything.
Grandma, you're mean, aren't you?
What? What did you say?
You're always looking down on mom, right? You want to feel superior, but people like that usually lack confidence or have nothing to be proud of. That's why they attack others to feel superior. It's a mean personality.
Leo, just because you're a child doesn't mean you can say anything.
Then what about a grandma who can't tell right from wrong?
My son's counterattacks didn't stop and my mother-in-law was increasingly cornered.
That's true, isn't it? Everyone has an equal share of stake, but mom has nothing? This is clear discrimination. Normally, this would lead to a fight. I have seen it happen many times.
My son was looking at my mother-in-law with cold eyes, far beyond his years. Seeing those eyes, she became a little timid and quieted down, but my son's momentum did not stop.
You're panicking. Your eye movements, habits, and amount of sweat tell the story. I'm studying psychology at Cambridge University, always at the top of my class, and I assist a professor every day. I see many types of people, and Grandma, you have a typical dictator personality.
Me? A dictator?
My mother-in-law seemed to have taken some damage, making a face. She probably never thought the day would come when her grandson would say such things.
You're sweating a lot from the agitation. Are you panicking, Grandma? Maybe no one has ever spoken to you friendly before.
That's...
My son was completely in control of the conversation's pace. I was simply watching the two of them. My husband was doing the same.
But there's really nothing to it, is there? I wonder why everyone was so afraid. By the way, Grandma, do you have something you're good at?
Good at? Well...
You were snapping at Mom even though you have no talents. That's not cool. Mom has some, though.
That's mean. Do you have to say that?
My mother-in-law was gradually backed into a corner, losing her ability to articulate. My son showed no mercy to her.
Mean? What you did, Grandma, was far meaner. Plus, Mom is skilled in embroidery. It could even sell in England.
I was surprised by my son's words. It was the first time my hobby was appreciated like this.
So, what's your point?
Don't you get it? Mom has skills beyond others, but you, Grandma, have none. Yet, you try to belittle Mom and assert dominance? Is it because you can't accept someone being superior knowing that you can't do anything? Grandma, you are the weakest here.
My mother-in-law was at a loss for words, her mouth agape. She must have been struck by the undeniable truth. She couldn't say anything in return.
And you, Dad? What have you been doing all this time? Why did you help Mom when she was struggling? Well, you couldn't stand up to Grandma, could you? I don't know if it's because she's your mother, but if so, why did you marry Mom?
My husband, too, was stumped by my son's legitimate questions and had no reply. Of everyone present, my son was the calmest and wisest.
In the end, both you, Dad, and Grandma are just bullying Mom without any real content. You just want to feel superior and look down on others. I don't want to be involved with such people.
My son's relentless words made my husband and mother-in-law's faces more rigid than ever before. Whether it was frustration at not being able to retort or something else, they tightly clenched their lips. My son's words hit home accurately and there was nothing they could do. I was simply delighted that my son had grown so wonderfully, and I couldn't help but gaze at him. Then my son said to me, "Mom,
let's leave these two and move to England together."
England? But we don't have the money and finding a job there will be tough. As I replied, my son, who had been serious until now, began to smile.
Actually, one of my classmates has a father who's a Hollywood actor. I became friends with him, and when I showed him pictures of your embroidery, he praised them. Then his father heard about it.
Really? That's wonderful. My son continued.
So his father wants to buy your work and then use a spread with over 200 people now waiting to buy your pieces.
What? As I expressed my surprise, My mother-in-law and husband also listened to my son's story with astonished faces. My son went on.
Mom, I'm sorry for taking the liberty of arranging this, but they want you to open a store with your handmade crafts. The kid's dad will handle all the expenses, including the cost for relocation, so let's turn your hobby into a job in the UK.
My son's eyes were sparkling with excitement. Indeed, for something I do as a hobby, people around me often praise my finished works. I never dreamed that this would become my job. And in England? No less, not America. I fell silent for a while, pondering. The three of them focused on me as I thought,
Oh, Rhina, you're not really going, are you?
You can't be serious, right?
My mother-in-law and husband asked me with frantic expressions. I thought hard about it. My son was right. If I'm going to be harassed at my in-laws' house anyway, I want to make my hobby my job. Moreover, the already frosty relationship with my husband has worsened due to his cold attitude. I felt like I didn't need to be here anymore, and I made up my mind.
I'll give it a try.
I accepted my son's proposal. My son was overjoyed at my answer, and my mother-in-law and husband wore shocked expressions. I decided to say it plainly.
That's it. I'm divorcing you. I'm tired of being with you and being oppressed by your mother. Let me be free.
With that, my husband slumped and said,
All right.
My mother-in-law was ranting until the end, but I didn't catch any of it and don't remember. And so the divorce was finalized without fuss, and I was freed from my in-laws' house.
Now I'm busy in England preparing to open a shop.
I insisted on making all the products by hand. This may be the most fulfilling time in my life. Later, I heard from my son that right after I arrived in England, my former mother-in-law stumbled at the entrance and ended up in the hospital. When she was injured, my former husband didn't know what to do, so he called an ambulance, but as she was being carried away, she ranted and raved, her complaints echoing throughout the neighborhood. This incident led to the block party members finally distancing themselves from my former mother-in-law. Since they were merely members who had quietly obeyed under intimidation, there were no real friends around her. My son apparently still keeps in touch with my former husband. It seems my former husband is doing all the housework by himself since my former mother-in-law was hospitalized, and with increased expenses, he has started working a late-night part-time job. The two who had continued to torment me have now begun to fall in love. Considering my former mother-in-law's age, full recovery may be difficult and she may need care even after discharge. Going to be tough, but I hope the two of them will do their best to live on. I'm steadily working on products for the opening. My son is helping with the interior decoration of the shop next door. Although the idea of moving abroad was scary at first, my son is helping me wholeheartedly, which is very reassuring. My son who rescued me from a painful in-law family. Now, as a mother, I will do my best to support my son as I finish the last piece.